#SafariLIVE, or you can send us questions at wildearth.tv, and we'd be more than happy to answer as many as we possibly can for you. The wild dog yesterday, wow, I went to bed last night thinking about every single moment that we experienced yesterday, and it was a beautiful, beautiful day. Today we've got a lovely breeding herd of elephant here. Fantastic, probably about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can probably anyway, but there's a lot of different elephant in here. They're a little bit hard to see now, but I want to just carry on parallel to them. What's lovely about watching them eat, they just trundle along, roots, leaves, bark, seed pods, whatever it may be. And this particular individual's got a bit of a taste for the roots of these plants that she's eating. But the other thing is, there's another animal down a bit further to the left, Andrew, that's like pushing over a tree at the moment. And then they're all doing different things. You've got animals eating, you've got this one here, she's dust bathing as well, so lots of different things going on, which is great to see. Very, very comfortable with us as well. That's one of the most important things, I think, when you're in the presence of elephant, is just to be nice and calm, judge their behaviour, and just sit. Vegetation is a little bit thick here, but they're probably going to move around us, and I'm going to let them dictate the moves. They'll give us really obvious indicators whether they're not happy with our location. So we'll always adhere to the rules and regulations of the Elephant Society. But the animals, I always use this word habituation. The animals in these reserves, these protected areas, have been habituated to vehicles, and they know that we don't present a danger to them. So everyone's happy. They've just changed direction now. I thought they were going to go this way, but I'm going to reverse up a little bit. The little youngster just behind this tree here is quite fun. You might have a look at him. Just glance at Andrew and just tell me I have an elephant behind me, which is always a bit of a hazard. Okay. See if we can approach these two here nicely. Okay, my boy. Okay, my boy. No problem. We'll just let you be here, mate, for a second. Have a look at that female just there. She's lovely. I'll just roll back a bit more for you. She's moving into shot now. I think she is. You can see how she just pushed her youngster on there. I can't really, I can turn around. That's probably the best spot. If I turn around, you get a better view of this. They're very comfortable with us. Matriarch just said, let's move to the others. And she pushed her baby on, which was quite kind of nice to see. But I don't want to split this herd, of course. It's okay, my boy. It's okay. Really beautiful, lovely light coming through. There's a lot more of them actually down there in front of us. I'm just going to roll down here. Nice and quiet. Okay. Right, my girl. We'll just sit for a second. She just gave a little bit of a head shake there, just to say, okay, just stay where you are. So we'll do that for her. So just to give you a nice little sort of sensory feel and 14-15 degrees Celsius, about 56-58 Fahrenheit. Got that beautiful golden light coming through those trees there. We've also got a beautiful smell, and I always like to tell you about the smell of the bush. There's a smell of elephant, obviously, and that is a really sweet smell. Lovely sunlight coming through there. Really sweet smell of elephant, and it's sort of a it's a definite unique smell, but it's not the smell of necessarily their dung, etc. It's the smell of them themselves. They have a really beautiful. Again, I use this word quite often when I'm describing animals, but it is a sweet smell. It's not a smell that's harmful. That's for sure. It does mix in with the bush very, very nicely. And it's sort of, you could compare it to probably a little bit like a cattle smell mixed with herbs. And I say that again as well. It sounds a bit weird, but there's no real other way to describe it if you want to compare it to our worlds that we live in all around the world. We all come across a farm sometimes in our life, and you probably know the smell of horses or the smell of cattle or the smell of sheep or goats. Those sort of animal smells that they've got something unique about them. And then a lot of wild animals have got kind of a lovely tone about it that smells a bit like a herb, you know, when you go into a herb garden. So it all might sound a bit strange to describe like that, but it's really trying to give you a little bit of a notion of how it feels where we are right now. The sunlight's just really beautiful and gentle coming through the trees there. Just going to wander down a little bit further. There's a real young one down here. And this may be the herd that we saw a couple of days ago in the afternoon. We did a sign off for close as they were crossing the road. Just going to move down here gently. So I also don't want to ever split off the herd. It's a very unpleasant feeling for them to have someone in between, a foreigner, in between their herd and cutting off either the youngsters or... Have a look at this, folks. If you just stay right where you are there, Andrew. That's fantastic. You got this female walking across the road. Beautiful big cow. You can see her, how full of milk she is there in between her front legs. And look at that little guy. That's a beautiful little beast. Some big females in this herd. Beautiful. And there's a real young one as well, just following up. Wait till you see this little guy cross the road. Just cross back, mate. Doesn't want to get left behind there. Really lovely, just moving across the road, feeding as they go. They've probably been down to Twin Dams for a drink. There's a couple more down here as well, still yet to cross. I might just move down a little bit closer so we can enjoy that. Well, got a lovely question from Terry in Santa Ana. And if it's the Santa Ana I'm thinking about in California, I'm thinking it is Santa Ana in California. I've been there before and it's a beautiful place. So Terry, lovely to have you on board. Welcome to Wild Safari Live. And Terry's question is, what's the most unique or unusual behaviour I've ever seen in elephant? Well, there's a lot of stories about elephant. Everyone's got some when you work in the bush and all over Africa. I've seen some incredible behaviour with helping their youngsters. I remember one time in Uganda there was an elephant that the little baby looked really ill for some reason. I don't know what was going on. It was in the Queen Elizabeth National Park, and when I'm looking away from camera, I do apologise. I'm just keeping my eye on these elephants, and it's very important not to become complacent around elephant and just respect them, but also know what's going on all around you. So this little baby was quite sick, and he was trailing behind, or she was trailing behind the herd, and the mother kept on coming back and giving it a nudge and keep on pushing it over, and they were on a mission. They were travelling for a very long distance. The water, the food supply in Uganda is pretty consistent because of the rainfall, and so there wasn't an issue with drought or anything like that. But this little baby was really struggling, and he kept on lagging behind and slowing down, and we sat there and watched for hours. And it was pretty heart-wrenching stuff to watch, because there's as I always go back to this connection that we have with elephants, is this care for their young, and he kept on coming back and giving it a nudge, and it took a while for us to sort of decipher whether she was the matriarch or not. Excuse me. But what she did do is came back and she stayed with that baby. It got to a location where there was a bit of shade, and she stayed back, and she just brought the herd back to stay with this baby. And they just stood for longer than we could stay there. And it was a really incredible behaviour to see that she was trying her best to keep this little baby, but she had the rest of the herd she was responsible for as well. So that was an unusual thing. I've also seen elephants come very, very close to us. I was walking with a mate of mine who's a professional trails guide in South Africa, just like Stefan, and we were in a location just outside of Sabi Sands called Timavati. Magnificent location, beautiful reserve as well. And we were walking and watching elephant very, very closely, but we had a great position. They were down in a waterhole, and we were up on an embankment, beautifully located, but what we didn't know and we didn't expect, and you can't predict these things, was another herd came from right behind us, and we were sitting and we just didn't move, and the matriarch came up within about 10 or 15 metres of us, and it was probably the closest encounter I've ever had with elephant on foot. And we saw this elephant look at us, and just the matriarch decided whether the situation was of danger or not. They were obviously well habituated to humans as well, and particularly humans on foot, but she had a very young calf under her belly, and she stood there and just stood tall over us for about, it felt like about 10 minutes, it was probably only about 10 seconds, and it was a pretty heart-stopping moment, I have to tell you. But I don't know how she decided that we weren't a threat, but we were sitting as well. We weren't that sort of normal human shape. We were sort of sitting behind a little bush. She knew that we were there. She checked us out. The whole herd stood directly behind her, motionless, until she gave the word. And she just dropped her head and shook it and walked on. And the rest of the herd followed. And none of the herd paid any attention to us. So there's moments like that that you really do remember in your elephant sort of history, and I'm sure Stefan and Scotty and everyone else have got as many or better stories, but they are extraordinary, Terry. They're an extraordinary species that we all have a tendency to connect with. We might just go down and see this last individual here and let them get on their merry way. A great question, Terry, and thank you very much. My friend. Got a question from Lynn in Toronto. It's a lovely bit of sunburst through that shot there, Andrew. Lynn, welcome aboard. What a great city Toronto is too. That is a fantastic part of the world, and I love your incredibly difficult position. You look at it and you think, how can a little baby suckle from there? But it's a beautiful thing to watch. You can see he lifts his trunk right up around, and he will gland there, and there's a lot of females in there that had full glands, full of milk, and that's the only ungulate or hoofed animal that I know that has them between the front legs. It's a great question. Thank you very much. Twin dams here, conserving fuel as we go. So while we're just arriving at this dam, I'll have a look around and we'll come back to you. I'm going to cross over to Scotty and see what he's up to, and how great is it to have Scott on board. This is my first drive with Scott for, 6 months, and he's an amazing guy. So let's cross to Scotty and see what he's up to. We'll see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone. And from the ginormous elephants you've been enjoying with Hayden, you've come across to myself and VM with these small birds. Now, they've just decided to disappear into the longer grass, and this is where they spend their time feeding. They're a bird called the crested francolin, and the nice thing about winter is that as it starts to become colder in the morning, we often get spoiled with good sightings of birds as they are more relaxed and, I guess, colder. Maybe not necessarily more relaxed, but certainly colder and less inclined to move. So you can find themselves sunning themselves, and the sightings will certainly get better. And we'll also be able to see different birds that we wouldn't have been able to see that often in the summer, when the vegetation is thicker and when they are not required to sit out on open branches or on the open road to sun themselves. And it sounds like it was a beautiful herd of elephant you're looking at with Hayden. I'm very happy that it didn't take him long to track down something interesting for you guys. Now, interestingly enough, we've heard a few more elephants, and they're just somewhere on our right-hand side. So we're just going to creep forward, and hopefully one of these bushes will reveal the elephant that we heard crashing through the bushes. They can be loud feeders when they're snapping branches, trying to access the roots or bark. And that's what we heard somewhere on our right. It's hard to say how far it was exactly, but it seems close by. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to show you a few more elephant bulls. There haven't been too many on the property over the last few weeks, but I did see one yesterday. And who knows, maybe this is the one. It's phenomenal how well elephants can conceal themselves, or they blend into the environment despite their size. So we're just going to stop momentarily here. and listen for a moment. Listening can be one of our greatest tools, and it is often very important and does pay dividends to just stop and listen. And I've just heard the crack of a branch. Now we're going to try and find a way in to where the audio of these breaking branches is coming from. And it's certainly not going to be the first time VM's off-roaded with myself. We've spent hours working together over the last 5 months, and we've built up a great connection, so we understand what to do and when to do it when working with one another. And like I said earlier, it's so great to have him back, the elephant, but it's certainly worth trying to get a little bit closer. And we'll continue to drive, get closer to the audio of the branches breaking, and then stop and listen. And I'm hoping that it's not too thick for us to find this guy. Now, even though we are stopped and hoping to find an elephant, we could hear other audio of lions calling or leopards calling, or potentially even the alarm calls of animals. And these are all the benefits of stopping and listening. Sometimes you can get caught into a trap of feeling that if you're not moving forward, you're not covering ground, and therefore you're not going to find animals. That's a dangerous situation to get into, and it's better to rather move slowly through this vegetation and listen and look and read into as much of the signs that are available to you. These signs obviously I've just heard the elephants again. It sounds like it's right in front of us. Just heard a gentle break of a branch. Got a question through from Catherine, all the way in Texas. And while I answer this question, I'll stop again and try and fine-tune exactly where this elephant's hiding. Good morning, Catherine, and thanks so much for sending your question through. Catherine's interested to know if there's a way for us to be able to know how many elephants will frequent the Sabi Sands Reserve. And for the new viewers, it's important for me to quickly mention that even though we are part of a private reserve, 65,000 hectares in size, we are open to the Kruger National Park, which is 3 million hectares in size. So we are a mere dot on a massive, massive ecosystem. And the wonderful thing about it is that there's no fences between us and the Greater Kruger National Park. So there's free flow of animals. And animals like elephants will move huge distances and are not bound by territory. That makes it very difficult for us to know the numbers of the animals coming in and out of the reserve. So sadly, we don't have any exact numbers. There may be some information that is available from collared elephants, but that won't give us a realistic number of how many animals we are seeing. Now, this elephant is evidently playing hide and seek with us. As you can see that from this vegetation in front of us, it is very thick. And I know you have just seen some elephant with Hayden, but that's not to say that these elephants aren't different potentially, and I'm hoping that it could be the elephant bull that I saw yesterday afternoon close to camp. He was a beautiful big bull, and there haven't been too many around on the property. I'm hoping that changes as it becomes drier, and it's always an interesting thought because the animals don't have, or the elephants don't have set territories. It is always interesting to monitor their movements and notice increases in either the breeding herds or the bulls. At the moment there's a few breeding herds around, which is great, and it's the breeding herds that will hopefully lure the men in when the ladies are in season. Jim, you haven't heard anything for a while, huh?
A little bit.
Let's creep a little bit further forward. Failing this, we may need to leave this stealthy elephant and go and look for something else. I know it does get very thick as we head further down into this gradual valley. And I was hoping he was going to be on the fringe, which is just about finishing now where we are. Off-roading and spending time with animals with no adverse effects. Otherwise we certainly wouldn't be able to be enjoying it 50 years later, or more now, I guess 60 years, 65 years later. I often think back to the people who founded these reserves and were pioneering enough and adventurous enough to buy land and look after it so that we can all enjoy it. Well, now, here we go. So what we can see in front of us is some more evidence that there's an elephant around, and judging by the size of those large soccer balls of dropping, you could say, it looks to me like it's the property of an elephant bull. So we're getting closer, and now we know that this elephant was here just a few minutes ago. I'm surprised we can't see steam rising off it, but you would have noticed there was a layer of moisture around it, and this is very fresh. Just need to try and establish which way he was heading in now. Oh, I'm wrong. That wasn't... Although there's a breeding herd that's passed by here. I can see lots of small tracks. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not an elephant bull. Maybe it's just a very big female. Or it could be that a breeding herd that would have passed by here a little bit earlier. We'll continue to search closely. But in thick vegetation like this, you don't want to be crashing around too much and interfering with what the animals are doing. Good morning, Tom from the Netherlands. Tom is interested to know whether elephant bulls will ever kill young elephants or female elephants. And In a normal environment or normal ecosystem, the chance of that happening is very, very slim. And the reason for that is when elephants are exposed to a proper upbringing in a completely natural environment, they will be less likely to be boisterous and troublesome as they grow up. However, you do get some small reserves that are fenced in and will have a small population of elephants that may have been rescued or rehabilitated, brought from other areas of higher risk to them. They are animals that are poached for their ivory. And in those smaller reserves where they don't get a proper education and proper exposure to other herds of elephants, you may find young bulls becoming troublesome and aggressive, and there they may kill other elephants, but I've never heard of it. I've never actually heard of an elephant killing another elephant. I certainly have seen footage and heard stories of elephants killing other animals like rhino or buffalo when they get into altercations, but again, that is often in areas where the reserves are micromanaged and fenced in, or an area in times of drought and extreme hardship where animals may be competing for a water source. It's a great question though, Tom, and I'd be interested to know if anybody has heard of elephants killing other elephants in any scenario. And if you do know of a story, please feel free to send it through, and we can share that with everyone. And to send through, it's hashtag SafariLIVE on Twitter, and or send through an email to questions@wildearth.tv. We really do appreciate not only your questions, but also your comments and updates on scenarios like the one we've just been chatting about. And thank you so much to everyone who said the kind words of welcome to VM as well as myself, and we are loving being back out here. As great as it is having, it would be a lie if I said I haven't been a little bit jealous of all the time they've been getting to spend out in the bush. And like anything in life, I guess, it's good to have a little break. And now that I've been away from it for a while, it's a very, very good feeling to be back in the saddle. Well, the questions really are coming through this morning, and thanks again for that. Another one's just come through from Deb in Ohio. Good morning and welcome on the Sunrise Drive, Deb. Deb is interested to know, how old will elephants live to in the wild? And I'm sure it varies greatly, and sadly I've never tracked the full life of an elephant, and there's a few reasons for that. A, as we were talking about earlier, they are not territorial, so it's hard to keep an eye on them like we would a leopard or lion in this area. The other reason is because they live for a long time, and there'll be elephants walking around Africa at the moment that are twice my age, or roughly twice my age, and they can live to up to 60 years. Is the figure that is quoted. And with any figure of weights of animals, longevity of animals that you do read in, and even behavior of animals that you do read in textbooks, will vary for obvious reasons. It's just like saying how old will a human live for. It's going to vary greatly on many different, and there are many different variables. But around 60 years, so a very long time, Deb. And that will probably give you a clue as to how old I am, roughly. Okay, well, while myself and VM continue searching for whatever we can find, we're going to give up on the elephants that were in the very thick vegetation around us. But let's go and see what Hayden's up to, and we'll catch up with you a little bit later.
We're just going to turn up and have a look at Twin Dams now. You might wonder why the name Twin Dams when there's only one of them. There used to be two, one on the other side of the road, and it has water no longer, but they still kept the name Twin Dams. I always like to come down here this time of the morning and just have a little bit of a look, and also through this beautiful in southern Africa about where water congregates from different slopes or different angles from the lands into one area, normally a sandy, dry riverbed, and sometimes you'll hear people refer to it as a drainage line. But if there's no mammals here or anything else, there's normally some nice birds down here. It's a bit quiet, but that's okay. We can go and have a little bit of a look. We'll just pull up onto the dam wall. Egyptian goose. There, the Egyptian goose found throughout Africa. Quite a bolshy sort of a bird. Quite a bit of a bully, really. They do keep a lot of other birds out of the area. Normally here in a pair, so I don't know where the other one is, but yeah, they can be quite abrupt birds. But you can always, it's a quintessential African sound. And when you do hear them, you just do think of Africa, that's for sure. You got a good picture of it just there. I'll just play you the call. I'm just using my app, so just whilst you're here and looking at the bird. Now he's probably looking over here going, now that Land Rover sounds like an Egyptian goose. It's a bit strange. But yeah, that's the call. It is a quintessential African sound. But as I said, a little bit bold in their behaviour. But yet again, a fantastically interesting animal. Just sitting here for a couple of minutes just to see what goes on. One thing I can see, I might just jump out of the vehicle just to grab something for you because it's a really nice fresh one. So please bear with me. I'm just going down to pick up this elephant bolus. It's not as fresh as I would have liked, but just to give you a little, I'll just come around to the front of the vehicle. This is a nice spot to look at this. And you know, dung is everything really. It's a way for us to know what's been here. It's a way for us, if you're when I used to be a dung specialist, it was when I was a zookeeper, and that's because you can tell so much from your animals' dung. You can tell whether it's healthy or whether it's sick, etc. But it's a really good way just to have a little look at at the inefficient digestive system of the elephant compared to some other species. I'm just trying to find another bit of dung here from something else. When we go along, I'll try and pick up different droppings for you to give you a little bit of a comparison. But compared to a ruminant, which is an animal that's got several chambered stomachs, which we've talked about many times before. But just to recap, if you've just joined us, a ruminant is a very, very efficient digester. All the animals from giraffe. It's not as fresh as I thought it was when I got to it, but it's still quite moist inside. And I just want to give you a little bit of a quick chat, because as you're driving around, you need to look at some of these things in that sort of bush newspaper, or what the bush gives you as a bit of a hints and a script of what's going on or what happened last night. And ever so quickly, just a reminder that all the hoofed animals or the hoofed animals are broken up into different or families, and the family of ruminants like the giraffe and the buffalo and the antelope are very, very efficient feeders, hugely efficient. They have the ability to regurgitate their food and eat it over again. And we talked about this the other day, but for those who have just joined us, just a quick recap. That is a very efficient digestive system. They have the ability to break down cellulose, which is very difficult for people, for organisms like us or mammals. But for those ruminants, fantastic. Elephants, on the other hand, very inefficient system for the animal or the size of the bulk of the animal. So they have to consume vast amounts of vegetation. And you just want to see the inefficiency. You can tell by their feces, and it's a really great way to have a look. There's lots and lots of sticks, and the size of that still stick in there, and loads of grass and loads of different leaves and things like that. Now you might think, oh goodness me, he's touching elephant dung. This is plant matter. There's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing bad about this. Even the smell, it's got quite a sweet smell. It sort of smells a little bit like cross between hay and I'd say like a wheat germ or a bran or something like that we consume. So it's far from a bad smell. But on the other hand, not going on the smell factor, but this is buffalo feces or buffalo dung, and much finer, much. I couldn't even show you on camera probably how fine that is, but it's like a dust. It's like you can break that up, and it's just like a fine dust. And that's because that food has been chewed over so many times, and it has been getting the most amount out of nutrition it possibly can out of it. So it's just a real little hint about the two different dung types, and also why they are efficient, why they have to eat so much, and etc., which all goes back to the animal's behavior, and why we see elephants feeding for so many hours of the day, whereas buffalo have a tendency to eat and then maybe ruminate, which is that chewing over that cud in the corner of their cheek. Our dung lecture is now over. There will be more, my friends. There will be more. We might have to have a little dung quiz at some point. I think that's on the cards. We all like a good dung quiz, don't we, Andrew?
That's it. Who done it?
Andrew's just coined it. How good is that? Who dung it?
Yeah, Tara's been using that.
Right. I'm stealing it off Tara.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. I will never take the credit for that, that's for sure. She's a fantastic person. Right, I'm just going to plug myself back in. And once we do that, we're away. I just did hear a couple of alarm calls up the way there. So whilst we were dealing with that technical loop, we're just going to go back up. Just push a little bit of elephant dung in my ear there. Just do a little reverse here on the damn wall because it's a little bit tricky. I don't want to lose my cameraman. I've done it again. I've left little bits of elephant dung all over the bonnet, and I tell you what, guarantee you, I can tell you who's going to be eating that. It'll be me. I just want to go back now and just try and figure out where that alarm call was. But yeah, all those sorts of things, folks, it's just little bits of information that you start to build your picture of the bush. You build that imagery around, you understand why, not just why an animal's feeding off a particular tree or shrub or grass, but you understand the digestive system and why that is. And me being a bit of a... my job was to pick up animal feces for about 10 years, so I do have a bit of a hobby, I suppose you could say, of looking at animal dung. I mean, if you talk to Steph will probably elaborate on it on a much different level, because he uses that sort of thing in the bush on foot on huge, many different occasions. He would use that to build his picture of what's going on with whoever or whatever he's tracking. Yeah, he's an amazing guy, Steph, and really looking forward to working with him and learning as much as I can from him as well. It's all about sharing information as well. It's really important stuff. You learn from each other, you swap stories, you show each other little ideas. It's great. Just don't know where that was. It was over this direction. Just going to take a drive along here now. Just going to bumble around this area and see what we bump into. I haven't heard anything on the radio for quite a while. I'm just going to turn it back up a little bit again. It's a bit of a quiet morning all round. We did have that lovely elephant encounter first thing, but I suppose this is a good time while we're just driving along here to explain to you the beauty and the sort of the magic about what this is all about. Why do we do this? That's a question that I always ask. Why do we want to come out and see animals? What is in us as human beings that make us go to all this trouble, put all this equipment on the vehicles and go out and do this every day? There's got to be something within us as human beings that fascinates us that much that will make us do it. Now, I love that story and I love that concept of, like, I can't actually put my finger on what it is, but I think if you go back thousands, tens of thousands of years, there's a connection with the outdoors, there's a connection with the wilderness that we've all had back in our past, and I think it's still there. I think sometimes we have that sort of fear of the bush, or knowledge that a big predator can actually cause some rather serious damage to a human being. So we prepare ourselves for that. But once you start to study animals, you start to study how they work and their behaviour, you can start to become part of their environment. You obviously have to show huge respect. You have to make sure you learn about the distances and those sorts of things. But in essence, the whole point of what I'm trying to say is Wild Safari Live is probably the most incredible journey that you can ever get on board. It's one of the most fantastic sort of projects or delivery that I've ever worked with, and I just wanted to share with you my excitement of being out here. I come from all different parts of the world when I come here, and I've got to get back in the saddle, learn to ride the horse again, get familiar with the roads and the trees and the birds and everything. But once you start to get into a bit of flow, and Pete calls it flow, and I love that because it is, you start to switch off. You don't have to think oh gosh, is that camera, is everything, this, is this on, is that. You just go and talk to you as my friends, talk to you on my vehicle, share some stories, and it's just a great thing to be doing. And folks, where we do get a signal drop. So I'm just going to drop through this valley. Before I do, I might just cross over to Scotty, because it is a bit of a quiet morning, but you know what, on those quiet mornings it's really important to stop at the smaller things as well. And if you're looking for big cats, all the time and you're not finding them, you can't miss all the beautiful other things, you know, all the antelope and so on. So let's cross over to Scotty and see what we've got. We'll see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone. And here we have some impala. The male that you can see in shot, well, there's actually two males. There's a 6-month-old male, roughly, on the right, with the very small horns, and a much larger, mature male, probably around 4 or 5 years old. And we're getting into the rutting season, where impala will compete fiercely with one another, well, the men will at least, for territorial and mating rights. And we're not quite in the full swing of the rut yet. It's preempted by the first full moon in May quite often, and we're approaching that. We're just a few days away. And over the last few weeks, we've been noticing an increased testosterone and level of excitement with the male impalas. And I'm hoping that this male will get excited and try and... Sorry, I've just kept quiet there because I saw an Inyala bull running off. And I'm not sure what would have caused it to run off. And you may notice all the impala looking in that. It's a bark-like alarm call that the Inyala will let out. So that doesn't mean to say it didn't run away from a predator. I have occasionally seen Inyala specifically not actually let out an alarm call when they have seen a predator. Predators will certainly be aware of the easier hunting opportunities associated with impala when they're rutting, because the men run around like crazy beasts with very little on their mind other than fighting off other males and corralling and herding females to keep them on their patch of turf. And it is while they are running around like this with only mating really in mind that they can often find themselves either running into a leopard or being so caught up in a battle of the horns that a leopard can literally walk right up to them without them even knowing that it's approaching. So in the that we will be seeing some fully grown male impala hoisted up into the marula trees by a leopard. It's interesting how throughout a year there's different periods where certain impala will be targeted. At the moment, coming into the rutting season, it'll be the men, because with their increased testosterone, they will have dropped their security guard in order to increase their chances of mating. And therefore, it is them that get fed on the most at this time of the year. 6 months from now, when the ladies that they are fighting for give birth, or just before that rather, it'll be the females that are targeted because they're heavily laden with their young.
Tops, which is one of their defense mechanism in a way. So that's another fantastic attribute. The reason why I'm talking about it and getting some of these facts out to you quickly is because I have worked with Giraffe for a very long time, and I can tell by the behaviour of him that he's not, he's a bit wary, he's a bit uncomfortable, not with us necessarily, but just with what's going on. He's by himself. There's a bit of a wind, it eliminates some of his ability to hear, or dilutes his ability to hear is probably a better way to say it. So he's keeping his ears open. You can see them swinging around back and forth. But he's a beautiful example of a bull giraffe, folks. And I'll talk about the conservation of giraffes as we're driving, so I don't want to lose this vision. I'd rather talk about the physiology and the anatomy of him whilst he's with us. And really lovely pan, tilt down and up there from Andrew, showing you that sheer size of the animal. Up to 6 meters sometimes have been recorded. I have heard read one recording of nearly on 7 meters, which is about 20 feet. So huge animals, the largest land mammal on the planet, as we all know, and still a ruminant, just like those animals we were talking about before. Buffalo, very, very efficient digester, and he's I just can't believe how beautiful he is. He's just perfect. That neck, I'm sure most people know this, but just for those of you who don't, and if you've just joined us, a little bit of giraffe physiology coming through here, which is really good fun to talk about. And you may have got it even in a Trivial Pursuit question, whoever knows, but it's 7 bones in that neck, same as us, same as mice and most other mammals. I don't want him to get disturbed, so I'm just going to roll back here. At the slightest hint of him running, we'd obviously back off, because I don't want him to feel like we're tracking him. But he's comfortable at the moment enough at this distance. See that fantastic head just sticking out there? That's a great shot. They can't see that neck at the moment. We all know giraffe's neck is very, very long, but up to 2 meters, about 7 feet long.
edge of the Arethusa airstrip. That's where those lions had been located. There were two of them, the Timber Coalition, the coalition of male lions that we do see commonly in this area. And you may have noticed I was pointing to a picture of a leopard up in a tree in my book and mentioning that's where we were going. So hopefully that is what we will find very shortly. We are probably about 10 to 15 minutes away from there, and been battling with the radio comms over here on Arethusa, so we may potentially cut back to Hayden a little bit later just while I establish exactly where the sighting is. But for the time being, you can certainly look forward to a beautiful view of the Arethusa Dam. It's a very large dam that the Arethusa Lodge looks out onto, and one of the beautiful scenes that we enjoy when we come across to this property, as well as other things like animals. So great prospects, especially for Peter and Hayden this afternoon, who are going to be out and drive. Those two male lions will probably not go anywhere or do anything during the course of the day, and therefore you can look forward to almost a guaranteed lion sighting a little bit later this afternoon, and hopefully they'll be a little bit more active than the sleeping beauties that we got to have a look at earlier.
A little bit of a satellite issue just a few minutes back, and some of the audio may have crashed. I really do apologise, but these things happen occasionally. Just got a couple of impala doing that, showing that rutting behaviour. Might see a little bit of spectacle here whilst we're sitting here. I know you saw some of this with Scott this morning, so I probably won't repeat everything that Scotty said, but it's a really, really interesting time. There's another one right behind us, coming up behind us. There's an almighty vocalization that they have. But I just wanted to give you a quick recap. The last little bit about the giraffe that I was talking about was really just about that I hand-reared. I worked with a giraffe for many, many years. I've helped translocate them in the wild as well in Botswana. It's a species that I know and I love very, very well. They're very, very interesting animals. And on the conservation side of things, we cannot just think that because there's still a lot here or a lot over there in Kruger or whatever, that there's not a problem. There's a massive problem with giraffe. The giraffe population is in decline, a drastic decline at the moment, and one of the reasons for that is that human animal conflict, well, not conflict actually, because the giraffes really don't do a lot to humans other than coexist on communal areas, but they are coming into habitat loss is probably the biggest problem. So I have to mention to you an organisation that I am a very, very big believer in and a very, very big follower of and a supporter of. It's called the Giraffe Conservation Foundation, and it's run by a friend of mine, Dr. Julian Fennessy, who's probably the giraffe guru of the world. He heads up an amazing organisation that is really trying to create awareness about the giraffe and its plight, because it's going to be not before too long that we do lose certain ecotypes. Ecotypes of giraffe are the different coat patterns and slightly different head horn shapes and things like that, but mainly the coat patterns. You can go all the way up into Sudan and Uganda and Kenya, and all the way down across into Namibia, where we've got these southern giraffes, Namibia, Botswana, South Africa, Zimbabwe. But I suppose my point is just if you do, after you finish watching Wild Safari Live, jump onto their website, Giraffe Conservation Foundation, GCF it's called. Fantastic information about giraffes, lots and lots of resources to learn about them, and that's what it's all about. Wild Safari Live is all about you having this experience, but also stimulating you to be able to learn more about it and help with the existence of wildlife in Africa and around the world. Just saw those impala back there. It wasn't as spectacular as I've seen, or many of you have probably seen. But Jeffrey in Texas, welcome Jeffrey, and welcome aboard. I keep on saying it about the states and the places I've been to in the United States, but Texas I've been several times. It's a magnificent place and part of the US. So Jeffrey, welcome aboard. And great to have you here. Jeffrey's question is, when the impalas rut, is there much documentation of impala killing each other or to fighting until that elephant have pulled this here of impala killing each other? Not to my knowledge, Jeff, and I have to say I've never seen it in the wild. I've seen some serious sort of battles. I've seen one break a part of its horn off, which the animal did lose a little bit of blood, but that fixed itself or coagulated in good time. But you do see many giraffe. I keep talking about giraffe. You do see many impala, several impala in your time, walking around with one horn. Males that have had a pretty serious rutting time, and I've seen some that have been one-horned in a bachelor group, but in perfect condition. So I haven't seen any die, but I'm sure there was an instance where they have. One of the things you do find, and this is quite interesting, Jeff, and everyone else, but one thing you do find sometimes is that the impalas are in such a mental state of success and trying to push that other male off that they'll drop their guard so dramatically that a leopard or a cheetah, bang, get them. And they're just so focused and fixated on that rut that some predators will take advantage of that. So that's what I have seen happen. But great question, Jeff, and thank you. And I hope Texas is still as fantastic, I'm sure it is, as it was when I was there. Impalas are one of those antelope. I think, they've been classified as probably the perfect antelope. They got a magnificent body structure. They're fast. They can browse as well as graze. They have vast numbers. They've got incredible adaptation to different sort of habitats and climatic conditions. They can hold back their pregnancy for a little bit longer. It's a very, very beautifully adapted creature. And we've got a question from Blair in Canada. Blair, welcome aboard. Thank you very much for being with us. And she wants to know, Blair, you want to find out whether other female impala fight each other. Well, the answer is no, they don't. They're very, very quiet, they get on very, very well. And it's only the males that do the rutting and the fighting, but they will try and covet their herd and pull those females together and look after those females. But I've seen two females just sort of pushing their heads together, but not in any way, shape or form a fight. But yeah, that's the answer to the question, Blair, and I hope Canada's great. I did get a question the other day I saw I didn't get a chance to answer, and someone asked about some of the other animal encounters I'd had in my time. And I mentioned one in Canada, Blair, if you're still with us, and it was where I went to see this mass emergence of these garter snakes, red-sided garter snakes in a place called Narcisse in Manitoba. And the person that was asking the question said, I'm off to Narcisse in Manitoba to see these snakes emerge. So if you're watching, whoever it was, I do apologise. I can't remember after reading hundreds and hundreds of tweets and emails as we see. But if you're watching, fantastic to know that you're off to there. It's quite an incredible thing to see this mass emergence of these snakes come out of the ground. Speaking of snakes, when I was looking for Q the other day with Andrew and I on the vehicle, I was about to get out of the vehicle and move a stick, a bit of a branch out of the way, and there was this magnificent puff adder about this long, slowly moving his way out from under my vehicle, which I think I mentioned the other day, but I was really happy I didn't run over him. We do be very, very careful as we drive through the bush, but snakes will hear you coming. Here's a couple of lovely antelope. We'll just pull up. I'm going to keep the vehicle running because he will probably run off as soon as I turn it off, which is a great behaviour that they do. A young kudu bull. He's not that old. I'm just going to move forward for Andrew to get a better shot. There you go. He's behind a little bit of vegetation there. They're notorious, these guys, for as soon as you switch the engine off, running off. So I'll just give them a little second and just see if he stays. Oh, thank you, my friend. Isn't he beautiful? What a fantastic creature. He's only a youngster, and they've those fantastic side stripes on the animal. You can see on this female over here ahead, Andrew, onto your about 11 o'clock from where you are. Let me just move up. I'm on a bit of an angle here for Andrew. It's a bit tricky to get the level on the camera. So let me just move onto flatter ground. You'll see those lovely side stripes in there. If you can just, as she's walking through, you'll see those lovely side stripes, which are like a fingerprint. I think I mentioned it again the other day. I'll probably mention it every time we come across them because I think it's one of the most beautiful markings in the antelope world, and that's there to break up that body shape. They live in that vegetative sort of band of this sort of exactly where they are now is what they love. A little bit of open sort of woodland,